The show is supported by you, our listener. Stick around until after the news to hear some more about that. This is Cup of Go for 6/26/26. Keep up to date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 16 minutes per week. This is Jonathan Hall.
And I'm Shai Ahmad.
Hi, Shai. It's good to see you again.
666. The number of the beast.
It has been, at least 6 days since I saw you?
Yes. Really. The release schedule has been kind of weird, but here's what happened. We should do start with a short recap of what happened in Canada, right?
Yeah.
That was very unique. So a few listeners of the show who work for, I will say it, what looks like a great company, called Genetec, not sponsored, had a conference, like an internal company conference called Elevate Dev. Jonathan's actually wearing their swag shirt right now. And they emailed me. I think they emailed you as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, we're looking for speakers. And I guess the lesson is check your email, because we went to speak there. We flew out to Montreal. We hung out at the hotel. We met a ton of interesting people. Brian Finster, Steve Yagi,
Bill Kennedy, of course. Just a ton of very interesting people. And of course, people from Genetec themselves. They had a really cool conference. Do you want to try to explain how the conference was like? It was very unique vibe. Yeah. Oh, wow. It's hard to explain that. It was a great so it was a large multi-track conference. Of course, they had the keynotes, the opening and closing keynotes that were on the central stage, and then they had a bunch of breakout rooms for workshops and presentations. Which I gave 2 breakout presentations. You gave one on the main stage, but it was during the multi-track section, right?
Yeah, it just had a lot of people signing up because it had an interesting title, I think.
Yeah.
And our talks, of course, were focused on Go. Not all talks were focused on Go. Not all talks were technical. Some of them were like management, leadership, whatever. But I think it was mostly a dev conference. So Indeed. A lot of the talks were focused on development. A lot of them with really interesting speakers, like really talented people who wrote books about programming, people who with lots of experience. Very high quality conference for sure.
Definitely.
And it was in Montreal.
Yeah, it was. One of my highlights from the conference was a few weeks ago, I spoke about, on the show, I talked about Bill Kennedy will be presenting a workshop in Berlin at GopherCon Europe about agentic workflows in Go. And he gave the same, a condensed version of the same workshop there, and I got to sit in on that. So that was a lot of fun. I'll put
How was the workshop?
It was good. Unfortunately, I had a headache that afternoon. I didn't get to sit through the whole thing. But the part I did, it was quite enjoyable. Bill's a great presenter. So it was...
such a chill guy. We hung out on an Uber after. I don't remember where we were going, but we were going somewhere. And we were both like, man, Bill is such a chill guy. And we think of him as like a star in the Go world. Oh my God, he's Bill Kennedy. He's the Go guy. But then you end up just hanging out with him, and he's just like such a cool dude.
If you have a chance to see Bill in Berlin, go up and say hi. Or I think he'll be in Seattle for GopherCon in August as well. So.
Yeah. Sounds a bit like a mob threat. If you see Bill, tell him we send our hello. My highlight from the conference was definitely the party, Genetec party they had. Because I got to hang out with the Genetec people and walk around there. And it was a great event. It was a lot of fun. But also a lot of people talked to me and were like, oh, this is what I think about your session. I have some questions. I have some follow-ups. They have a very unique company culture. They're all very sciencey and growth oriented. So it was a ton of fun. As a speaker, you're uniquely positioned to sort of satisfy what they want to do. So that was a lot of fun. And you said the main stage. I just want people to have the image in their head. Like what happened on that main stage was it's like a full 360 arena situation. You're standing in the middle. Like production value is off the charts. They have a green room. They have someone who hooks you up to a microphone. They have video. It was really, really, really high quality. I felt super professional.
And it felt like I was at a conference center. It didn't feel like I was at an office building.
And part of that's just the layout of their office building, but also, just the way they decorated it. And I had one of my Uber drivers ask me, "What is this place?" I'm like, "Well, I'm at a conference. I think this is their office," but I was questioning myself as I said that because I felt like I was going into a leased conference center.
Yeah. So it was great. Again, shout out Genetec. Thanks a lot for inviting us. We had a ton of fun. Jonathan and I hung out physically for the second time in our life.
Yeah.
And we even got to travel a little bit. We walked around Montreal. We ate some food.
Some popcorn.
Ooh, lots of popcorn. That was good popcorn. Chicago style popcorn. And we forgot to buy jewelry for our significant others. Did everything. So that was a lot of fun. That was also why the regular programming schedule is was a bit wonky, but now we should be back to normal. Let's talk about normal Go stuff.
All right, let's do it.
Kick us off.
First up, Go 1.27 RC1 has been released. Yay! This means that there are no new features going into Go 127. It's been frozen. It's been frozen for a while, actually. But this is the first version that might theoretically be released to the public. If they don't find issues, they always find issues. They always polish things a little bit. But
you can help them polish it by moving your production load test, unit test, CI, whatever, to run on this new version. And then any bugs that pop up, just create a new issue on the issue tracker. And also a good reminder, we talked about a lot when it was like one of the main stories we covered when we started the podcast a few years ago, the Go telemetry, opt in, opt out, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It landed on being opt in. So please consider opting into Go telemetry because it will help validate its release candidate. They'll be able to know how many people are running it, et cetera, et cetera. Very simple. Just run Go telemetry on. Honestly, zero downside. It's like very anonymized and whatnot. I know it's hard to believe with Google in the background, but I think the implementation is okay. And it's very easy to download. Just a Go install command.
Cool.
Following up on that, there's a new release for Delve 127.0, which makes sense. It released 2 days ago. We won't go into all the issues because there are like in this release, there are like 30 or whatever. But I think the main thing this release has is it lines up stuff with 127, so you can debug 127 code. So, it has a lot of changes that are like, oh, now you can step into the new range over func. So you can like F11 on or whatever your shortcut is to do range over func stepping in the debugger. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this, not Jonathan. You had one of my talks was about Go tooling at the conference. And I was like, yeah, debugging is great and it's very easy. You should do a lot of debugging. And then you stepped up after and you were like, no, you're wrong. You care to explain yourself?
That's not quite what I said. I said I very rarely use the debugger because I focus on writing lots of small independent tests. And I feel like the only time I ever need to reach for the debugger is when I don't have good tests, which means it's on code that either I wrote 3 years ago or somebody else wrote.
God damn.
Or that's not entirely true. I do sometimes write code without good tests, but it's unintentional, of course.
So I do think I tend to write fewer tests than you do. I think our coding styles are a bit different in that regard. But I also just like, even if I have the test and the test is passing, sometimes if it's a complicated piece of code, just stepping through it. I think it's that can
be valuable. Yeah.
It goes to show how you learned how to program. Because when I learned how to program, I started on a pen and paper in school, and they had you write out like every single debug step on a big table. I don't know if they had you do that, and like if you ever done that.
No, I started programming on a Commodore 64 by myself with books from the public library. I did take some programming courses in university, but none of them were like that. No.
So I had to like write out every step and all the values, which is basically just being a human debugger. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just like how I'm wired. Anyway, 127, the debugger's out, the new tooling, all the tooling will line up pretty soon. And it's a good time to start trying it out and giving feedback to the team.
Right, you have a proposal you wanted to mention. Apparently, you hate dumb quotes or something like that. That's not very inclusive.
Yeah, don't quote me on that.
Nice. That's a better segue. I should have thought of that.
All right. So the proposal is to don't rewrite into smart quotes. So this is a feature of GoFumped. I didn't know existed.
Wait, GoFumped or GoFumped?
Well, both actually.
Okay.
So the original GoFumped, GoFMT, apparently rewrite, if you do 2 backticks, it turns it into a smart quote, which might be kind of nice in some situations, but at least for Rob Pike's chosen font, the double backtick and smart quote render identically. He says pixel identical. So he couldn't see that his code had been changed under his nose, and he doesn't like that. If for no other reason than when you start to grep for your double backticks, it doesn't find anything because those bytes have been changed.
Why would it change that though? Like, why would it do that?
That's the question. Why would it do that? Somebody thought it was a good idea once upon a time. The proposal is to not do that anymore. So this is in new status. It hasn't been decided yet. So if you strongly want your magical smart quotes to stay, you need to go and comment on this issue and tell them not to accept it. If you agree with Shai's reaction of why would you do that in the first place, then maybe go upvote it.
I think it's I'm looking at the design. I clicked on a few buttons here. It's like reformatting doc comments specifically for in documentation, so the printer will look nice for doc strings. Don't touch it. Just don't touch it. It's better. It's fine. Don't rewrite these things. I think I am very much in support of this. It's also very funny, I have to admit.
It is a little bit funny.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be that guy who's like, but it's a funny bug to walk into, I should say. Is this like a breaking change in your opinion? Does this require like backward compatibility, blah, blah, blah?
I don't think so, since as far as I know, it's only in comments. Like, I don't think it would change that in like a quoted string literal or something like that. So it should only be a comment change. I don't think backward compatibility rules apply here.
Yeah, but GoFumped only changes white space and stuff like that anyway. So any change can go into GoFumped. Doesn't matter how, now we are using spaces instead of tabs because you'll have to rewrite all your Go code now. Theoretically, now you have to go run GoFumped on all your Go code.
So I think in theory, they could change from tabs to spaces in GoFumped without breaking the backward compatibility promise. They wouldn't do that because that would be silly. But in theory, I think that's orthogonal to the backward compatibility guarantee.
Got it. This is funny. Like it doesn't look the same. At least in my browser.
Yeah, on my browser it looks very different too.
I wonder what font he's using. I wanted to step away from proposals for a second to talk about a different type of proposal, an acquisition proposal. In a very, I think, good news. Someone who was on the show, Matt Boyle. You may remember the episode we interviewed him on Ona HQ and all the work he's doing there. Filippo, you can now do your thing with the whoosh, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I'm Matt. I'm currently the head of engineering at a company called Ona, where we are building an AI platform using Go. I also am very, very active to the best of my ability in the Go community. I run a website called bitesizego.com, where I try and teach people post-beginner lessons on Go and spend a ton of time running a Go community on Twitter as well.
So Ona is, obviously they use Go and whatever, but it's like a platform for background AI agents. So you can run like your codecs in the cloud. And this is not really Go news, but we're just really psyched for Matt, because OpenAI are acquiring them. They have reached an agreement to acquire Ona HQ. I think specifically so codecs can like run stuff in the cloud.
Got it. Cool.
Good work, Matt. This is really, really cool. Congrats. I don't know what to add. Like, if you're interested in running background agents, check out Ona. And if you're interested in how to sell your company to OpenAI for presumably a lot of money, just come on Cup of Go and then wait for 9 months.
That was the direct line to success for them, no doubt.
Yes. All right. We have 2 other interesting backlog items, but I don't think we have time. We have to move on. I will move them to next week.
Why don't we have time, Shai?
Because we're up on the 20 minutes. We have to get up to the ad break because we have a really cool interview for you to listen to.
Oh, that's right.
A really, really interesting interview. You want to give us a short preview? Whom we're gonna talk with?
Yeah, we had a really interesting chat a few weeks ago with Francis Nichols, who works at Riot Games and uses Go heavily there. So we're going to be talking about Go at Riot. The interview was recorded a few weeks ago. We finally got it edited and ready to publish, so don't miss that interview.
Yeah, we're excited to let you all hear it. But a quick ad break. As Jonathan mentioned at the top of the show is supported by you. The best way to support us is via Patreon. Just join and kick in a few bucks a month. And you can find the Patreon link, including many other links to our Slack channel, to our email, to our swag store, which now includes the new shirts that have finally arrived at cupago.dev. Other ways to support the show include spreading the word about it. We don't pay to advertise. All our growth is based on people telling other people about the show. And apparently us going on a stage in front of like 300 people and talking about Go as well with a big Cup of Go sticker. So, leave a review or write about it or whatever. That also helps out a lot. Other than that, we do want to mention we're thinking about a lot of changes to the show's format. And next week's episode will probably not be a news episode. It will probably be just like a sort of stop and take stock episode. If you have any ideas or thoughts you'd like us, just with this general prompts ahead of time, feel free to DM us on Slack or email us. But we'll talk about it more next week.
I'd add a little bit there. Like if you have anything you would like to see added to the show or anything you don't like about the show, that would be really useful feedback.
Yeah.
Yep. So next week, a meta show in the metaverse.
Yes, it might be recorded with video. We'll see.
Ooh, wouldn't that be fun?
But it's not live. We're done with that. I don't want to see your face in meat space.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a quick lightning round and then get to this interview already.
Let's do it.
Lightning round.
First up, Go Please has a new experimental feature for those of you who might care about AI and LLMs and whatnot. They have a new MCP protocol built into Go Please that you can run. It's experimental. I guess that means it might be broken or it might change. Probably mostly means it might change, but you can check that out. It's a lightning round, so I'm not talking about it anymore. I'm done.
My lightning round item is apparently there's a Golang Brazil subreddit. I guess
Cool.
Go is really big there. We had the Go releaser person. He was from Brazil, right?
Oh, yeah.
If I remember correctly.
I think so.
There is a project called Glaze, a CGO free desktop web view toolkit for Go, sort of released 2 days ago. It's a desktop web view binding for Go, which is pure Go, so no C. She'll work on Mac OS and Linux and Windows, and nothing native is bundled, which is pretty cool. And if you want to render some HTML in an app using Go, this is one way to do that. I wouldn't know why you would do that, but now you can. I mean, I do know. I'm being facetious, but it's just an interesting project and something I would never work on. So very cool. It's there, similar to like Whales and whatever. If you're having pain trying to build like a little web, desktop app, this is really good.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'll see you at the interview. Do you hear that noise outside my window, Shai? Can you hear me at all? There's this huge riot right outside of my front lawn.
Oh, no.
I wish I knew how to get rid of these, how to take care of riots. Hey, Francis. You might know something about Riot.
Yeah, I know a little bit about Riot. Been there for a few years.
Welcome to the show. Tell us who you are, and I guess we know where you work now, but we could make it formal. Tell us who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
Yeah, my name is Francis Nichols. I'm a staff software engineer at Riot Games. I've been at Riot going on 16 years. Prior to that, I did a short stint at Blizzard and have worked in a wide variety of other industries over the course of my career. But yeah, I'm currently a staff software engineer working on mostly infrastructure and the operation side of things at Riot.
Cool. So is working at Riot fun? Is it a riot?
Well, I've never worked in one place as long as this. So
Okay.
I will say there are definitely a lot of fun things about working at Riot. And as part of my job, I'm expected to play games. So how bad could that be?
That sounds cool.
Nice. Just for people who may not know, Riot are behind titles that probably you have heard of, even if you're not a gamer, like League of Legends, Valorant, Teamfight Tactics. I think League of Legends is one of the most well-known video games that people have some opinions on, and on the people who play it. It's to the point where they're like stereotypes or whatever, but I think it's super cool. Just to put it out there, it's like a very cool game. It's a lot of fun. It requires some dedication that I don't have, but it's a cool product.
Yeah, in the early days, it had a significant learning curve to get into it. But somehow millions of people around the globe have decided they really enjoy playing it, and hence have caused me plenty of headaches over the years as how to solve problems at scale and keep the game up and running 24/7 globally.
So basically, every player who lost and rage quitted because of lag, they can blame you. That's what you're saying.
Don't get me started on lag. Like I actually did a player-facing tool 10 years ago called the Lag Report that we actually released to players. We recently mothballed it because it had sort of fallen out of disrepair. But I am very passionate about last mile connectivity and how that impacts or can improve the player's experience playing the game.
Interesting. How did you come to the interview? That's interesting. You're like a long-time listener, first-time caller, right?
Yeah. Well, I think Jonathan made a call out a couple months back saying, I'd love to talk to somebody who uses Go at a game company. And I guess I'm your second now. I'm sure there's plenty of Gophers in a lot of different game companies. Matter of fact, I know of some in other companies. So we exist.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for responding to that. Let's just start with, how do you use Go, or maybe more broadly, how is Go used at Riot? Because I imagine everybody has the sort of concept. It's probably the boring stuff, but you're not rendering 3D graphics in Go, I'm imagining. But let's tell us what you are doing in Go.
Yeah, like the things we're not doing is our game clients that get deployed to players' machines and devices are not written in Go. They're usually written in C or C# or C++. But it's the back end stuff, which I don't find boring. I find it quite fascinating.
I don't either. But when you think of games, it's not the sexy stuff that people generally tend to think of. So
our security teams use a lot of Go tooling. Matter of fact, we have one that's open sourced called Key Conjurer. And so a lot of services, I personally use it in building a lot of command line tools that other engineers within my sphere actively use.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So you mentioned, I don't remember if it was before we started recording or since then, because we talked for a while. You're doing sort of operational DevOps-y types stuff. What are your responsibilities right now? Like, does your team have a name that's meaningful for us?
Oh, no, not at all. The team does not have a meaningful name that would be worth sharing.
All right.
To give you a sense of like what I've been doing like over the last 5 years, prior to the current team I'm on, I worked on a team that was laser focused on building, maintaining, and supporting our Kubernetes clusters that the majority of our games all ride on top of. And, being Kubernetes, there's a lot of use of Go around that, deploying services.
On one hand, this makes a lot of sense because of just the scale of Riot games. Like these are games that have sometimes even like League has millions of concurrent players, right? Or tens of thousands. No,
it's millions.
The number is millions, right?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
There was a time I had a dashboard that like I would watch, the CCU every day because whenever there was a dip, there was an issue and I needed to jump in and respond to it.
So it makes sense that the games are running on Kubernetes because it's also like, a game is like a game of League is like 30 minutes or something. It's a server or whatever. But on the other hand, I'm thinking like, pods, they die all the time, like for like evictions or whatever. Doesn't that mean the game will crash? Isn't that like super frustrating? I'd rather have like a dedicated server. When I'm imagining gaming servers, I'm imagining like, pizza, huge, you know what I mean? Like big servers, server racks.
Yeah.
The game gets like an IP. How do you run something that's like as customer facing? Because, a background data job or whatever, or like an HTTP server, it makes sense to me to put on Kubernetes. But what's like the architecture that makes it work on Kubernetes without disrupting player games all the time?
Well, we strive for very high reliability, as many nines as we can get. And, it's true. If your pod that's hosting your game craps out, your game is disrupted. That fortunately does not happen very often. It's actually kind of a rare occurrence. And so, we in the early days, we absolutely had the pizza boxes. I was in the server rooms, stacking and racking them, hooking up the cables. And for a long time, that's how we ran our game servers, and all of our other services ran on more ephemeral stuff. But these days, we've gotten things running really nicely, such that, we can run game servers on, pods that once we decide to drain that pod, we let the games finish out. And when the game's done, and there's no more games running on that pod, we can kill that pod and, start up a new pod to take fresh games. We use HBAs for like handling auto scaling. So like, there are peaks and troughs in a day, like where there's lots of players playing, and then there's periods of time when there aren't. And so we take advantage of auto scaling groups and HBAs to like spin up and spin down resources. Lots of fun stuff.
Super cool. So sorry, I cut you off just because I got caught on that Kubernetes thing. But you said 5 years ago you were working on on a team that's in charge of Kubernetes.
For actually as recently as 2 years ago, but for a number of years, that's a team that I was on. More recently, I'm on a team that's dealing with all of our ingress traffic that is not game server traffic. So the majority of any TCP traffic that's coming into any of our services goes through various filters and WAFs and stuff like that. We're using caching a lot.
So is this stuff like websites, chats,
services, any, all that good stuff. Okay. And having been there 16 years, some of our tech has gotten kind of old and just needed a refresh. So like one project I worked on recently was sort of modernizing some of our ingress practices and tooling.
And the way you're both Kubernetes and like web servers and whatever, I think usually of Go is like, the underlying tool uses Go. Like, I use Kubernetes and that uses Go. So knowing Go gives me an advantage. Or, I'm writing a web, I'm using a web firewall. It's written in Go. If I have to go into the implementation, I can read it. Do y'all have do you roll your own, or do you add like plugins or whatever? I'm trying to pinpoint, what sort of Go development is going on. Just because such a big company and so much so much scale, it's, I've never experienced something like that. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. For my work, I am not actively writing a Go service that is massaging traffic or anything. There are other teams that might be. A good number of our service teams are written in Go, but we also use a variety of other languages, Python. I think there's some Rust here and there. There's definitely C. Like there's no like Go is the only language you're using. We're using a variety of languages. But like for my specific work, like I might write a tool that helps automate, some process, or a migration tool for migrating some systems from one way of doing things to another. And rather than doing that manually, because we have so many endpoints and so many services, we have to automate things. And so, the two tools of normal trade is either Python or Go. So there's a fair amount of use of both tools on the back end side of things for helping automate things.
So you were talking a little bit ago about these pods that manage your League of Legends games. I don't imagine those are written in Go. I imagine they predate Go?
I actually haven't worked closely with those teams in a long time, so I don't even know what they're written in.
All right.
So I can't even agree.
That's fair. But just looking at, League of Legends came out in 2009. Go was kind of barely a blip at that point. So I would, unless it's been rewritten, I doubt it's written in Go. But it sounds like you use Go mostly for some orchestration, and you say some services might be written in Go. Do you have an example of a service that you know is written in Go, or that you worked on, or are you working on mostly orchestration?
I can't answer that question. Like that is probably not a safe question for me.
He can tell you, but then he can. This is just a League of Legends joke, but he can leave you in jungle to die. So don't. I actually wanted to sort of pick your brain a little bit. I know a lot of developers, me included, got into software development because of our love of video games. For me, it's 100% what happened. Like, I loved video games, and then I loved the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. Then someone told me, oh, it's all written in assembler. So I went really deep on learning assembler, and that was particularly useful for, my first jobs. This is sort of how I stumbled into it. To me, there is like game development, and there's working in a games company. You know what I mean? So clearly, if you love video games, working in a games company is better than working in whatever else company. But I've also heard a lot of bad stuff about the gaming industry for software developers. There's a lot of crunch before releases or anything like that. I'm wondering, does that extend to people who like yourself, who developed like the backbone of this gaming industry, but you're not like a game developer yourself? You're not sitting down and designing levels or heroes for the game or whatever. Are these rumors about like the gaming industry for developers true? That it's like very crunchy, very stressful? What it doesn't like? It's not actually fun like playing games, making games.
Yeah, so that is a really interesting question.
And by the way, just before you answer, for the context, you have experience in more than one gaming company.
Yeah,
you've worked at Blizzard, which is one of my childhood, like the core memories. The amount of hours I spent like in StarCraft and Warcraft and all that stuff. Man, if I just spent them on software development, I might have been good by now. Like, it's really.
Yeah, so why don't I just start by saying I actually swore off video games in college. Now, for me, that was 40 years ago, and video games are not what they are. They were not what they are today back then, but they were still time sinks. And my grades were suffering. I was spending way too many hours into the wee hours of the morning playing games instead of doing my schoolwork. My grades were suffering. So I swore off video games in college and then ultimately graduated. I would not consider myself like a hardcore avid gamer. I sort of fell into it. Back in the .com days, I got involved in a startup doing interactive television, and we were syncing game shows on TV to web experiences. And so that was sort of my first like reintroduction to sort of the gaming, vibe. Fast forward to getting into Blizzard. Prior to Blizzard, I was at a multinational holding company that had brands around the globe, and I was running IT operations for them. And then the 2008 recession happened, and I knew some guys working at Blizzard who I worked with at a bank like 10 years earlier, and they brought me in to deal with a project that wasn't going well at Blizzard. And I came in and got that thing going. And then as I was finishing up that project at Blizzard, I was looking for my next gig. Riot came along and offered me a position. At the same time, Blizzard turns around and offers me a full-time position. And I had to choose between the two. But to your question about, crunch time at games, I think prior to probably Blizzard and definitely prior to Riot, most games were produced similar to how movies are produced. You pull together a bunch of people, you work really hard on this game, and then you publish the game on a CD or DVD, and you let everyone go because like the game is just, it's done, right? And then if they're going to do a follow-up, that's a new crunch that, you work on that. One of the things that the founders at Riot really keyed into when they started Riot was this concept of games as a service. And like when I got to Riot, like I thought I knew what Agile was. I found the company being run more agile than I had ever been exposed to before. But really the concept was we're making tweaks and adjustments to the game every 2 weeks. We'd have a release every 2 weeks. We'd introduce new champions into the game. And, the game you're playing today on League of Legends or Valorant, is going to be slightly different from what you're playing a month or 2 months from now or what you were playing 6 months ago. And so it keeps the content fresh, keeps it engaging. And while they're like little crunches, because what's going on it's just like how we do software development, right? With releases, what's in the release, what's not. Go is a great example of, a release cadence. We're pushing this content, at a regular interval, and either the feature's in or it's not. Same could be said to how we operate most of our games in that way. Now, granted, there are key things that we change in the game that have a little bit more fanfare, and there's definitely target delivery dates for that.
Like a new mode or something like big.
Exactly. But, and so there is a little bit of crunch, but I would say my experience has been, we don't crunch to the point where like you're totally exhausted and, you need, to disappear for 3 months just to recover from it. We try to keep it a little bit more sane.
So it's interesting. Like in the past, games were, like you said, like a big production. It had a release date. So people were like really working hard to get to that release date. And then it's out.
And they let you go, right?
Yeah. And then either it works or it's not, it's a big success or it's not. And now it's more like normal software development where the game, you put it out, maybe, I don't know. I'm playing a game right now that's in early access. So maybe you even put it out while it's in development to get some feedback. And you like improve it as long as you have the core ready, like improve it over time. And games as a service like Valorant, whatever, League of Legends, they have even like seasons, that concept.
Right.
And generally on the flip side, so the most worrying thing I hear about working in a games company was actually the crunch. Is the flip side true also? Like, is it awesome to work in a gaming company because you play video games all day, or you get like,
I wish I played, I don't play video games all day, but, there is an expectation that you play so that you can appreciate the player's experience. So that the technical decisions that we're making, like, whether or not to add a caching layer onto something, like what does that mean to the player's experience, right? Like being able to identify how the changes you're making technically might impact the player experience is something that we try to bring to the forefront. But to your point, like there could be teams within Riot where like they have a hard deliverable and there might be some crunch on it, but I don't think it's like the crunch followed by the crunch followed by the crunch. So there are companies that probably crunch harder. And so, it may still be true in a number of gaming companies in the industry that, the crunch aspect is real.
Are all of Riot's games sort of online games, or do they? I mean, I guess all games these days are, at least to some extent. But like primarily, are they multiplayer?
Actually, we just released the trading card game.
Oh,
so we have our own trading card game. We've done
like trading card, like a physical card.
Yeah,
that's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, damn!
Is that written in Go?
Nope. It's written on a printing press.
It's written in PostScript.
Yeah, but we also have there's a board game we produced a couple years ago. We experiment a lot of stuff, and we've also done an animated series on Netflix called Arcane,
which is really good. It's like I don't need to promote it because I think it's like number 1 on Netflix Israel or something, but it's really good. If you haven't watched it, it's like a good watch. Not a good watch with kids. It gets kind of dark, but I watched it with my wife and it was like,
all right.
Really
that's
good.
the question. Can I convince my wife to watch it? So anyway, as for video games though, are they all online games with a multiplayer component, or are they more like the traditional FPS type of thing where, it's a single person playing a mission?
Most are multiplayer online games. I think we've released some smaller games that are like PvE, player versus environment. I'm trying to remember, like, the ones that I worry about day to day are all the online multiplayer ones, where we're dealing with issues of scale and high reliability.
And so if the model is online multiplayer and you're releasing fresh content frequently, it doesn't sound like there's really the opportunity. I mean, unless it's perpetual crunch, you're not going to have that opportunity like you do. Like, oh, we need to hit the July 4 release deadline for this whole new thing. It's a different business model, and so probably a different just a different approach, different sets of constraints and pressures.
Yeah.
What do you like most about working at Riot or in games, either or both?
What do I like most? Like, one of my favorite activities at Riot is our internal hackathons, which actually starts up next week. We've been doing this for probably 15 years. I've only missed one, and that was like the second one, years ago. And like, literally, we get the number of hours every time seems to change, but like the last time was 48 hours. I don't remember what it is this hour, but it's 2 or 3 days. You get to like form your own team and work on whatever like fascinates you. At the end of it, we do this big science fair thing where you walk around the room and you see what all the other teams have done. And some of the things that the people work on actually make it to be real product that gets delivered to players. But the goal isn't to produce new product. The goal is to basically scratch whatever itch you want, and maybe get to work with people that you don't normally work with on a day-to-day basis. So, like, some of the teams that form are with complete strangers. In a company our size, like, I don't know everybody. There was a point in time in the early days where I knew everyone at the company. Nowadays, like, when I do a hackathon, I might join a team that I don't even know half the people. And you spend 2 or 3 days working on something intensely. You get to meet some new people and hopefully learn some new stuff too. So that's one of the things I enjoy most at the company.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's interesting. So you mentioned scale. I'm saying I assume because I think I'm actually wrong. But, when you're talking about scale in your industry, you mean suddenly, now it's 6 p.m. in America, suddenly whoosh, like, I don't know, maybe 3 p.m. all the kids come back from school and they boot up League of Legends all at the same time and jump on a game. And then as the time zone, as 3 p.m. knocks in throughout America, suddenly you have a lot more gamers trying to use your game at the same time. But even though League of Legends is a totally global thing, I assume you have peak times and some peak times during the day. I don't know if they're America centric or not, but I assume there's like peak times where there are most players and then there are very low hours when most of the world is like asleep. Or is it very uniform just because it's a global thing?
Like, one of the early jokes around Riot was like, hey, Rito, buy another server. All the players don't play on a single instance, right? We actually break things up into regions. So, if you're in North America, we have a collection of North American services.
Of course. You have to have the service geographically close to the players as well.
Exactly, because we worry about lag. So we physically try to put our servers as close to players as possible. And then with Valorant, we even go beyond that. Like, we stand up multiple points of presence throughout a region to provide players the best experience they can have. We've also stood up our own private backbone. So we have this service that we call Riot Direct, and we try to peer with as many last mile providers as possible, and we try to onboard your ingress traffic and egress traffic as close to the player as possible. And then we take ownership of the transit of the player's packets from that point of presence back to wherever the server's located. Speaking of scale, like, that in itself is probably, I haven't looked at a recent ranking, but it's probably a top 30 or top 50 global network compared to large ISPs.
Oh.
The nice thing about players is they don't all log in at the same time. Having worked in television broadcast where like the broadcast starts exactly at a specific point in time, you have a lot of spiky traffic. Ours gradually come on and then gradually decay. So we don't generally deal with spike traffic, but we definitely get DDoS fairly regularly. And so when DDoSes show up, those show up as spikes, and we have to like absorb those and make decisions about is this legitimate traffic or not, and try to bat the bad traffic, malicious traffic away and protect the player's traffic.
Talking about bad traffic, now I'm thinking about it. Like bots and cheating and all that is a real thing. In, if I'm developing a Go backend service in some B2B SaaS company, I have to do like a penetration test once a year just to have my certifications. But honestly, 100% of my requests are legitimate requests most of the time. For a gaming company, there's like incentives for the players themselves. Well, ideally, the players themselves are logging on to have fun and whatever, but they're like botting to level up their characters, or they're cheating to get like an unfair advantage in games. Is that something that the firewall is aware of, or is that the application layer thing, or is it like defense in depth where multiple layers are trying to deal with it?
Definitely defense in depth. We have a dedicated team called Anti-Cheat. You can probably find some posts online about some of their things that they've had to do to like detect cheaters and, thwart cheaters from playing. We try to make sure like the game is only as good as the experience you have, right? And so if cheating is rampant and, you're playing against someone who's cheating, you're not having a fun time. You're not having an enjoyable experience because it's like, how can I win? This person's just trouncing all over me and there's nothing I can do, right? That's the effect of cheating. Mm-hmm. So we take anti-cheat very seriously. We take there are concepts like gold farming, where there are these places where people will try to generate automate and generate currency in the game to then sell to players who basically don't want to put in the time and experience on the game. There are services that do all sorts of things like leveling up accounts. Like we try to identify those and shut those down and making it really difficult for them to have a viable business in our ecosystem. And then there's
because they ruin like the experience for legitimate players who are logging in. I'm ashamed to say you said it, and suddenly I remember like one of my first jobs when I was like 11, leveling up my friend's RuneScape characters, just logging on. But I didn't automate it in any way. It was literally, I logged into their accounts and clicked on trees and whatever. So I'm ashamed to say I was part of that industry once, but I've seen since improved my ways.
Yeah, so it can be big business when you have an ecosystem where you have millions of players. There's the opportunity for someone to figure out how to like capitalize on that. Mm-hmm. And to that end, like in the early days, we used to have problems where bots were scraping our services, and both for illegitimate and legitimate purposes, and crashing our servers. So we actually stood up our own dev portal where you can get an API, credentials into our data set. And as long as you're using it for, non-malicious purposes, we'll give you data, and metrics about, all sorts of things in the game that aren't even fully exposed in the game clients. So there's a strong third-party ecosystem wrapped around our services where you can explore, building your own third-party service that may provide information about your game history, or give you suggestions on, which characters you should be playing or which characters, you're weaker on and you need more practice on. Like there's a whole ecosystem tied to that. And we support that with our dev portal and API. And so that's something you could write in Go, right? You want to make a League of Legends or Valorant related tool, you could access our API using Go and, make your own little third-party service,
cool.
Some unique use of our data.
And just so, asking for a friend, what are the latest anti-cheat mechanisms? No, I was just kidding.
Well, I used to sit right next to that team, and so I would see and hear a whole bunch of stuff that they were doing.
Honestly, that sounds like such a fun team to work in, because it's just like cat and mouse against people who are very motivated.
But the same is true in DDoS, right? Like DDoS isn't necessarily cheating; it's people trying to make the service unavailable. And, game companies aren't the only targets. Everyone gets DDoS, but the bigger you become, the more of a target you are. And I used to spend my Christmas break sitting in our NOC, because that's when all the script kiddies would be off school and they would start like, hey, let's take League of Legends down. And we didn't have the tooling back then. And you could, with not too sophisticated methods, cause real impact. And so like my first 2 or 3 Christmases at Riot, I literally was in our NOC probably, more hours than I cared, and not at home with my family. That doesn't happen anymore. We've got things well in hand these days. But it's still cat and mouse.
Yeah. I would like to ask how you use AI, because I bet you have some insight, because everybody's using AI these days in some form or fashion. What does it look like for you on a daily basis?
Well, for me, I caught the bug probably 2 years ago. Like, prior to that, I was pretty much an AI pessimist. And it's like, okay, it's not going to be that good. It's a waste of your time. Don't do it. And I forget, I think I was at a AWS reInvent thing where like every session I went to, like they somehow dropped in the word AI, right? But I went to, I think, a Code Whisperer session where they actually showed me like prompting, and it's like, okay, that looks interesting. I'm going to try it out. And when I got back to Riot, we had a trial with I believe Copilot, and I started trying it out, and I'm like, hey, this isn't too bad. Like, I can do a 2 or 3 sentence prompt and generate a bunch of code that actually looks halfway reasonable, and it helped reduce the toil. And so for probably the last 2 years, I've been using AI and prompting and like trying to figure out like how to provide better context to AI so it generates better code for me. Like one of the tricks I discovered maybe a year ago is like, I had a situation where I had a function that took a couple strings as parameters, right? And I had prompted the AI to do some stuff, and it went off and it generated some code. And I didn't notice that it swapped the order of the parameters. And so it was passing in one value as a string into what should have been the second parameter. And this bug got into my code, and I spent, I forget, maybe a day or two trying to figure out what happened to my code. Like everything was going great with AI. Now it's all for, junk. And I found the bug, and it's like, oh, the AI swapped the parameters. Like, why would it do that? And then the light bulb went on in my head. It's like, you know what? I can use types in Go, and I can call this parameter, the XYZ thing, and this other one, the ABC thing. And now the AI knows that like the 2 parameters are what they are, and it'll never swap them, right? Because it knows the typing. And so once I started figuring that out, it's like, oh, I just, customized my types all over the place. Every function had its own type. I stopped using the native types. And I found the AI got a lot better. Now, more recently, I've been exploring spec-driven development and design-driven development, Ralph loops. And like it feels like the 1990s all over again. Like I am having so much fun just figuring out like how to leverage AI to generate more value faster. And it is like I'm excited to be working in technology right now. Like Not that I wasn't before, but I'm really excited to be working in it right now. Yeah. And Go is my language of choice. So like it's all, everything I'm writing is in Go.
The highlight of what are you applying AI to? Like which languages and which tools you've had before and how you use them? I think it's something that a lot of people are realizing that, well, I had this super custom, dynamic thing that had a lot of context you had to hold in your head and a lot of these things that are not very clear. And I'm trying to put AI to work in that framework. It's having a really hard time versus Go, which is very explicit. All the code looks the same, even it has one hidden benefit. I'm sure it's less important now. But I was at a lecture at a GopherCon Israel around 2 years ago when these things like started getting into circulation. Like you said, you mentioned, I caught the bug. I love that approach where Natalie from Go Time, which is not used to be a podcast about Go, we all loved. Now it's gone. So sad. She had a lecture about exactly that. She was, why is Go perfect for AI? Back then it was, the Go formatting uses tabs and not spaces, so it uses fewer tokens when you try to predict something. I was like, oh my God, that's such a weird little edge case of it. But I think over time, people really agree with you. I don't know, Mitchell Hashimoto on Twitter just recently said, oh, I'm using Go with AI, and it's a really good language for AI because of the type safety, because of the simplicity. It doesn't have a lot of keywords, because all the code looks the same in the training set. And I feel like other people are not having as much fun as we are, if they're in languages that are more open or more dynamic, because just AI is having a harder time there. I am wondering, you mentioned like expected development and whatever. Your services are like critical, right? If you push a bug that causes some like Riot to not have games for a day, that has a really big impact on the bottom line of the company. Are you reviewing all the code that AI writes, or are you at like YOLO mode? Code doesn't matter anymore. It's all about the spec.
Yeah, no. So we had some really firm policies on that. No YOLOs at Loud, because like I mentioned at the beginning, we care about reliability and uptime. I'm on the hook for anything I push to prod, right? Like, this past year when I've been working on this project, I used to joke that like, if there's a global outage in the next, 6 to 12 months, who caused it, because like I was touching essentially all the services all the ingress traffic into all the services. So if I screwed something up and pushed something to prod that had a bug, I could very easily cause a global outage. So getting back to your thing about spec-driven development, what I'm exploring next week in our hackathon is I want to see if I can define, I'm going to build a project and I'm going to go strictly off of the requirements and try to do a tight definition of those requirements. And I'm then going to ask the AI to build the tool that I define in my requirements using Go, Rust, and maybe even Zig, right? Like I know Hashimoto's definitely into Zig. At least I think he is.
Yeah, he's a big Zig guy. I think it's their number one financial contributor.
And I've only dabbled a little bit in Rust, but I haven't touched Zig. But I know that from what I've seen AI do with Go, that it's really good at writing good code. And I want to be able to look at the same service stood up in 3 different languages based off the same specs and figure out how good is this AI? Can I build 3 different executables that are all built off the same specs that are functionally the same, and what the differences are? That's the itch I want to scratch, is sort of test to see which language does better with AI. There's also the question of which model to use, right? We have access to all these different models. It's which model produces the better code. So that's the exciting part of things right now. It's everything's in flux. It's changing regularly. And, if you're not playing with it, you are not learning and you are falling further and further behind. The software engineer of tomorrow is going to have very different skill set than the software engineer of probably the last 20 or 30 years. Mm-hmm. But you still need to know all the foundations.
Yeah, that's pretty close to the way I see it. It's not that what we've been doing becomes obsolete; it becomes the foundation we're building on. And I think it, in a lot of ways, this is actually making good software engineering harder, not easier. in that, there's more training required to be able to do it properly.
Yeah, and the more interesting thing from an operations side, like, so you generate all this code, right? Now it's in production. So when you get the call at 3:00 in the morning that, some service is not working, today a junior engineer who doesn't have a lot of tribal knowledge of the ecosystem that the service is running within, may get pulled into that call, and they are like, I don't know where to look, and they don't have enough knowledge about it. And it's like, okay, can AI solve that problem? The problem today, or historically, has been most of this knowledge is locked up in tribal knowledge in people's heads, right? And this is where I think spec-driven development really becomes invaluable, is the better documentation you have, the better the opportunity for using tooling to identify the source of the problem, right? Like, as a senior engineer, when I get pulled into a triage call, like, I have, years of experience working the system, working on prior incidents. Like, I know intuitively, like, where to go. But, like, how does AI get the knowledge and experience out of my head to actually be able to automate some of that incident response? So that's another area that I'm quite fascinated with. It's like, how can we effectively and efficiently triage issues? And what sort of scaffolding needs to be in place for AI to be able to do a good job? Like, you don't want to hand the AI the whole code source base and go figure out this issue, right? Like, it's just going to chunk for too long. But you need some things where it's like, hey, I've seen these 5 things happen, these metrics go off the rails, and those are indicative of X, Y, and Z. And ideally, the requirements, when you do software development, it's all about the exceptions, right? The normal use case is the easy part of coding. It's handling the exceptions and knowing where a memory leak could happen, or where, some, recursion that runs wild.
My CTO calls that sense knowing where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
Just looking at a PR and being like, you know what? I'm looking at this. It touches this table. I know this table is bigger than this developer expected. I know this developer doesn't do performance testing normally. I'm going to block this PR, even though it seems reasonable. Let's just wait on it. It's like just a sense of where the bodies are buried. Yeah. I will say, just to play devil's advocate, but also because it's my opinion, I think people like yourself who are very experienced, have acquired over time a sense for where the bodies are buried, have spent their fair share of Christmases in Knox, for example, connected servers, and just are generally experienced enough, are in a very exciting space right now, where you can get back to being an individual contributor, you can try out all these things, are very exciting, whatever. As a new software developer, it's really hard to get the fundamentals right, I feel, because it's sometimes you churn out slop and it kind of works well enough. Nobody figured out that you don't actually know what you're doing. And then in 6 months, you're going to have unmaintainable code bases or really bad products. And personally, as a consumer of software, not just a producer of one, I've seen, a lot of bugs recently, a lot of security incidents, a lot of bugs, a lot of things going sideways. GitHub is down all the time. Duolingo is trying to push new lessons on me. They don't work. And conversely, services that seem to be developed by AI pessimists, very disciplined developers that hate on AI all the time, they somehow seem to be working all right. Lichess has not been down once in the last 6 months versus Duolingo, which is having problems all the time. 2 services that I religiously use daily. You know what I mean?
The GitHub one might just be there's so many more, changes being committed because of AI.
Also GitHub is its own thing. They don't have a CEO. They moved to Azure. It's a whole big thing, right? I'm not saying, just to be clear, I'm not saying GitHub is because of AI coding. That would be totally dishonest of me. But I am saying I'm a pessimist about people being able to utilize AI at all experience level. I'm looking at someone like yourself and I'm like, oh my God, this person has superpowers now. But it's not for everybody.
Yeah. So to that point, I've been mentoring college students for probably at least a dozen years now. I also recently began teaching part-time at a local university. I teach a graduate course on essentially it's their capstone project for their graduate degree. And I know that like one of the common questions I get from students is like, is this industry something I should even be pursuing? And my response to them is like, this is a fascinating time to be in this field, right? Like you are starting your career with these tools that like none of us have had before. And, early in your career, you learn a lot, right? Like and you have to try a lot of different things. So I am actually bullish on the opportunity for people to absorb how to use these tools that are still developing, and also master the foundational stuff that they need to know. And, you've got to produce some slop first to realize, okay, this is slop. How do I not write slop? Like I know my early programs look like crap. Even programs I wrote 10 years ago, I look at and I go, oh my God.
Anything I wrote more than 3 weeks ago looks like crap.
Exactly. So it is, if there's one thing that I, tell students is like, be prepared to be a lifelong learner, right? Like I am tickled pink that I am still learning stuff every day. Like if my whole corpus of knowledge was what I learned in the classroom 40 years ago, like I would probably be very bored. But the fact that there's new and exciting things to explore and master, I think is actually very promising. And yeah, the people who produce slop, guess what? They're going to have to realize I produce slop, and what do I need to learn and master so that I cannot produce slop? And that's where I find like things like spec-driven development, like programmers are notoriously bad about documenting. Like I've been banging the door at where I work, for probably a couple of years now saying, hey, we need better internal documentation for the services that we have so that our internal customers know how to use our stuff better. And I see spec-driven development as a path to where we will have better documentation about what a service represents, how it works, how it handles different failure modes. And that will only make AI stronger, but it'll also make the engineers who are architecting these systems stronger because they'll have, clear definition of how things work. It's even like when you explore a new programming language. If the documentation on it is good, it's easy to learn. If it's, you have to know all these secrets and do stuff that's not easy to uncover, like that language ends up being harder to master.
Totally. That's such a good, I think, balance of approach. It's not like a doomer, AI is useless, or a doomer, there's no point in this profession anymore. But it's also not, AI will do everything and I can just take that. It's just continue learning, and this is a tool. That's I think, a good approach.
You had mentioned, you got into game development and assembly code because like you thought that's how games were produced. Like, if we were still all writing assembly code, like think how, like where we'd be. We would not be where we are today. Like this AI tooling thing is like the next layer of abstraction from higher level programming languages. Like I've heard some people say, hey, maybe programming languages disappear, right? We go from specs straight to an executable, and like nobody needs to look at the higher level programming languages. Like maybe Go becomes obsolete at some point. I don't think we're anywhere close to that right now, but I can imagine
it's an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah. Like, there'll still be higher level language, but you don't look under that hood anymore. The PR process and the test, definition process will be strong enough. That's like, I trust the code that the AI built.
Well, I don't trust the code that I built 3 weeks ago, so it's going to be hard for me to trust a bunch of matrices.
Yeah.
But you might be right. I think it's still far off to have that discussion in earnest, especially in products that either have, critical uptime requirements, such as games, like online games, or industries that usually deal with highly regulated data and whatever. But it's definitely an interesting thought experiment. Assuming Go doesn't become obsolete very, very soon, and there will be a need to use it like tomorrow-ish. We have a stumper question that we usually ask every interviewee. It changed over the years. This year, it's what is your favorite Go library or like Go trick or recommendation that isn't in the standard library? I'll be really interested to hear what's your answer to that. You actually shared before the interview that you have a couple of answers you thought about for this one.
Yeah. So like my easy answer to that, and it's because I write a fair number of CLIs and I maintain a fair number of CLI tools, is the Cobra library, right? Like the command line parser that's built in the standard library just leaves me wanting. And I found Cobra to be a cool tool, a tough one to master. Like it takes a little bit of a mind meld to sort of like figure out all the different things. And there are bugs in it. I've even done, I think I had a bug fix I did a couple years on it. And I had another one I started on, but I never finished it. But it does the job for me. So I'm really happy with Cobra. And then an honorable mention for me is a tool that I think you guys had a mention in a previous podcast. It's Excelize. It's a library for generating Excel native file formats. I had a tool I was building a couple years ago, and CSV or TSV was not going to be sufficient. I wanted to be able to create a tabular data set from some stuff I was extracting, and be able to provide a spreadsheet where I could pivot on different fields, and but I needed this data to update like weekly, and doing a CSV and then having some manual process of merging it into an Excel file would just seemed arduous. So I went looking, and lo and behold, this guy made this library that generates native Excel formats. Like, hey, I can use this. And it solved my problem. I haven't used it since, but I recently looked at it and I see it's actually still live, and looks like it's
great. They just had a release February.
Yeah. There's 300 contributors on it. I think back when I was looking at it, there was like less than 20 contributors on it. It was just the one guy. And I had issues with his library, and I posted some questions to him, and he actually got right on them and fixed my problems. So I was able to use his tool. And so I'm a big fan of open source. I think open source is also a great way for young engineers to get exposed to what software engineering looks like, right? Like, you don't
100%.
need an internship at a big company to find out how software engineers work. Getting exposed to, creating a PR and getting feedback and tweaking your PR, and, finally getting your PR merged, and doing that in an open source framework, provides you experience and also provides you resume gravel for, look, I've been a contributor on this open source project for, a year or so. And I can act as a hiring manager. I can go and look at their interactions with other developers and see how they might work on my team if I were looking to hire them. You don't see that regularly on resumes, but for a young engineer trying to break in, it's definitely a great venue for building up experience and having something that they can show. That's
cool.
Yeah, it's better than showing like the hackathon project that you spent 2 days on. Like, I don't want to look at your code from it 2 day hack. Right? I want to see the code that you
real open source work has a lot more cred, because you got to pass a bar of the maintainer. You found a project where you also show the fact that you are able to write software with other humans, which is becoming the harder part, versus just generating some code that creates a portfolio website which looks like 100% of the other students,
right,
or whatever.
Or it was generated by AI, right? Like, it's like, okay, did you do this? Like, the AI did it. Like, I want to see how you interact and understand those fundamentals.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. If people want to talk to you or find you online or message you after the show, where can they find you?
LinkedIn's usually the easier way.
Are you on our Slack?
I am on your Slack as well.
We don't have to go through Microsoft software to talk to you, which is always a bit.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If you're adverse to Microsoft, like I think.
No, I'm just kidding. I made so much money because
I want Google Plus back so I can use that.
I did sign up on that when that came out. But,
yeah.
I was
it was just you
part
and me,
of the first 500,000 signups on LinkedIn. And I have like one, less than 7-digit number for an ID on LinkedIn. I found it invaluable over the course of my career. Yeah, keeping track of people I lose track of.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been fascinating. Honestly, it's a shame we don't have like long form interviews, like 8 hours. You know what I mean? But
maybe we'll create a side channel for our Patreons to listen to those long conversations.
Maybe. But thank you so much for coming on the show. And I know you didn't really say it on the interview, but I really appreciate all the nice things you said about our podcast before we started recording. That's so awesome that we're able to, provide an interesting show for you to listen to. I'm positively impressed about Riot Games right now. I had no opinion of the company, but now I'm like, I think I have a good opinion of the company.
All right, great. It's been my pleasure. And I really enjoy what you guys are doing with your podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
We'll talk to you next time. Thanks everyone for listening.
Program exited. Goodbye.